Mark Whitman seemed like an ordinary man, but behind his quiet life, he was planning something no one could imagine: a single individual about to bring an entire mall to its knees. Mark Whitman was a man who seemed ordinary at first glance. He lived alone in a modest apartment above the city's busiest streets, working a quiet, unremarkable job that kept him invisible to most people. He walked through life unnoticed, blending seamlessly with the crowd, and no one ever suspected the darkness brewing behind his calm exterior. For years, Mark had quietly studied human behavior, fascinated by patterns, routines, and the ways people responded to chaos. He didn't crave money or fame. His obsession was control, the ability to manipulate circumstances and watch how fragile the world around him truly was. His focus eventually settled on a single target: the city's largest shopping mall, a hub of commerce and social activity where thousands of lives intersected daily. To Mark, it was a perfect stage for his experiments, a place where ordinary routines could be twisted into total disorder. The first stage of his plan began long before anyone noticed anything was amiss. Mark spent countless hours observing the mall from a distance, blending in with shoppers while memorizing every detail of its layout. He noted entrances and exits, security camera placements, and the movement of staff during different shifts. He followed janitors, security guards, and even delivery personnel, mentally recording their routines, vulnerabilities, and blind spots. Every observation became a piece of a puzzle he was assembling meticulously. He collected blueprints, studied emergency procedures, and familiarized himself with fire alarm systems and sprinkler locations. While the mall appeared safe and well managed to the public, Mark saw weaknesses everywhere. The more he learned, the more confident he became that one person, working in secret, could disrupt the entire operation. Mark also studied human behavior. He observed how crowds reacted to delays, malfunctions, and minor emergencies, imagining scenarios where those reactions could be amplified. Panic, confusion, and frustration fascinated him, and he carefully noted which exits people instinctively headed toward and which areas they avoided. Months passed as he refined his understanding of the mall and the people who worked there. Even minor details mattered: the time it took security guards to respond to alarms, the locations where shoppers lingered most, and the spots where employees were most distracted. Each small observation strengthened his belief that chaos could be engineered with precision. At home, Mark constructed his plan methodically, sketching maps, taking notes, and visualizing how events would unfold. He considered every possible obstacle and planned contingencies for each one. While his neighbors thought he was an ordinary man going about his daily life, Mark was preparing for something extraordinary, something that would leave a lasting mark on the city. His obsession with control and manipulation grew, consuming his thoughts entirely, until every waking moment revolved around the idea of proving that a single individual could bring a seemingly indestructible system to its knees. What started as curiosity had evolved into a full-scale mission, one that would test both human behavior and structural limits in ways nobody could imagine. Mark's first moves were almost invisible, subtle enough that most people dismissed them as minor technical glitches. Electrical systems in parts of the mall began to fail intermittently. Lights flickered in the food court during the busiest hours, elevators stopped without warning, and security cameras captured distorted, scrambled images. Staff initially assumed these were random malfunctions, blaming aging infrastructure and poor maintenance. But to Mark, each disruption was a confirmation that his plan was taking shape. He had no intention of causing mere inconvenience. His goal was to destabilize the entire system while remaining undetected. Each glitch, each malfunction, was a test and experiment to see how the mall's employees and visitors would respond under pressure. Mark's approach was meticulous. He studied the timing of every repair, the order in which maintenance staff addressed problems, and how management reacted to complaints. He understood the importance of precision. A single mistake could expose him. So, he made changes in small increments, always careful not to leave evidence that could be traced back to him. Sprinkler systems were subtly altered so they would fail under certain conditions, creating doubt about safety protocols. Fire exits were blocked temporarily with materials that appeared legitimate, giving the impression of ongoing maintenance rather than deliberate sabotage. Every action was designed to erode trust, not only in the building itself, but in the people responsible for keeping it safe. As weeks passed, the mall's atmosphere changed. Employees grew tense and suspicious, whispering about repeated incidents that seemed increasingly strange. Store owners noticed minor damages that couldn't be explained by normal wear and tear. Shoppers began to sense something was off. Lights would flicker while they ate lunch, escalators would pause unexpectedly, and the overhead announcements sometimes crackled or failed entirely. Anxiety spread like a quiet contagion, yet no one could pinpoint a cause. The mall's management remained frustrated and puzzled, hiring technicians and contractors who found nothing conclusive. Through it all, Mark remained unseen, a shadow moving through the building. He observed from corners and high vantage points, taking mental notes of reactions and adjusting his tactics accordingly. Each disruption reinforced his belief that control was possible, that chaos could be engineered with patience, observation, and subtle interference. He wasn't acting impulsively. Every act was premeditated, calculated to destabilize without drawing suspicion. What others saw as mere bad luck, he recognized as signs of progress. Each moment of confusion and unease brought him closer to his ultimate goal, proving that one man could manipulate not just the systems, but the people within them, setting the stage for destruction that no one could anticipate. The first major incident occurred on a rainy Thursday evening, a day when the mall was packed with shoppers hunting last-minute deals. Mark had been waiting for weeks for the perfect moment to escalate his plan, and now everything aligned. He manipulated the main power grid so that during the evening rush, lights across the entire mall went out simultaneously. Darkness fell instantly, disorienting shoppers and sending waves of panic through the crowd. Overhead alarms blared, their shrill sounds amplified by the high ceilings, while smoke detectors triggered without cause, adding a sense of imminent danger. People froze, unsure whether the threat was real, and then surged toward exits in a chaotic stampede. Mark watched from a hidden vantage point, his heart racing with a thrill that only he could understand. He had anticipated how fear would ripple through the crowd, how people would instinctively move in certain directions, and how security personnel would respond under pressure. Guards ran to investigate alarms and check blocked passages, unaware that the chaos was not a random occurrence but a calculated design. Some shoppers found exits locked or jammed due to the temporary blockages Mark had set up earlier. Others tripped over debris or collided with each other in narrow hallways, and minor injuries began to accumulate as confusion intensified. Each reaction validated the precision of his plan. Emergency crews arrived quickly, but even they struggled to navigate the darkness and the panicked crowd. Communications were disrupted, further amplifying the disorder. News cameras captured the unfolding turmoil as shoppers fled through hallways illuminated by flashing emergency lights, creating images that would later dominate local headlines. Yet, despite the media attention, no one suspected a single orchestrator. The mall's management scrambled to reassure the public, promising investigations and improved safety measures, but they had no clue who had orchestrated the nightmare. Mark's fascination with control went beyond causing fear. He wanted to observe, to measure the fragility of human behavior and the failure of systems under pressure. He moved deliberately through the chaos, documenting every response, every misstep, every moment of hesitation. His mind cataloged patterns, how long it took for crowds to respond to instructions, which exits were preferred, and where security efforts failed. By the end of the night, the mall's structure remained intact, but the trust of employees, shoppers, and management had been severely shaken. Mark had successfully demonstrated that an ordinary environment, carefully studied and manipulated, could unravel spectacularly. The night's events marked the turning point in his campaign, showing that subtle sabotage had evolved into full-scale manipulation, setting the stage for destruction far beyond what anyone had imagined. In the days following the blackout, the true scope of Mark's influence became painfully clear. Several stores reported extensive damage, both from the panic during the incident and from the malfunctioning systems that had been sabotaged in the weeks prior. Inventory was ruined, shelves overturned, and electronic equipment fried due to sudden power surges. Some shop owners were forced to close permanently, unable to recover from the financial and reputational losses. The mall, once a bustling hub of activity, now carried an air of tension and suspicion. Shoppers hesitated to return, wary of another unexpected disaster, and employee morale plummeted as fear and uncertainty spread through the staff. Investigators arrived, combing through footage, equipment logs, and witness statements attempting to make sense of the chaos. They uncovered evidence of tampering with fire alarms, sprinklers, and electrical systems, yet the trail seemed to lead nowhere. No fingerprints, no suspicious purchases, no clear motive. Speculation ran rampant, with authorities considering possibilities ranging from organized crime to disgruntled contractors, but every theory fell short. The pattern of calculated disruption pointed to someone with intimate knowledge of the mall's inner workings. The deeper investigators dug, the more they realized the mastermind was likely someone who had studied the mall for months, someone patient and meticulous. Meanwhile, Mark remained invisible, continuing his observation of the building's unraveling. He reveled in the aftermath, analyzing reports, reading news coverage, and noting how management and authorities struggled to restore order. Each failure validated his belief that he could manipulate not only systems, but people. He had created doubt, fear, and mistrust on a scale that no one could have predicted, and the mall's collapse was happening incrementally, piece by piece. Despite his careful planning, Mark's growing sense of invincibility led to a critical oversight. In his obsession with controlling every detail, he underestimated the persistence of investigators and the power of modern forensic analysis. One tiny camera angle he had dismissed as irrelevant had captured a fleeting glimpse of him entering a restricted area during a key sabotage event. At the time, he hadn't noticed it, believing his plan was flawless. But this minor lapse would later provide the thread that tied the chaos back to him, a small but crucial mistake that set the stage for his eventual exposure. By the end of this period, the mall was left in a state of fractured stability. Structural systems were operational again, but trust had been shattered, employees were demoralized, and the public remained wary. Mark's campaign of calculated fear had not only demonstrated the fragility of human systems but also showcased the danger of one determined individual operating in the shadows. He had tested limits, pushed boundaries, and left a lasting mark, proving that control and destruction could exist in the hands of a single person with patience, obsession, and cunning. Mark Whitman's reign of calculated chaos continued unnoticed for months, but even the most meticulous plans contained small cracks, and his obsession with control left him blind to the one thread that would unravel everything. Investigators, combing through months of footage and logs, began to notice subtle patterns: times when systems failed, repeated access to restricted areas, and inconsistencies in maintenance records. One overlooked security camera, previously dismissed by the investigators as non-essential, captured a fleeting image of Mark entering a maintenance corridor during a critical power outage. It was only a brief moment, a shadowed figure in a dimly lit hallway, but it was enough to start piecing the puzzle together. From that moment, authorities traced his movements, digital purchases, and subtle clues that had gone unnoticed. Each small detail, when combined with the evidence of system tampering, pointed toward a single person, someone who had intimate knowledge of the mall's operations. For months, Mark had believed himself invisible, a ghost manipulating events from behind the scenes. His arrogance had grown alongside his obsession, convincing him that he could outsmart both human intuition and technology. But the investigators' persistence began to close the net around him, and for the first time, the illusion of control began to crack. When law enforcement finally apprehended him, Mark remained eerily calm, as though the months of orchestrated chaos had been a triumph rather than a crime. He did not resist arrest, nor did he express remorse. Instead, he appeared almost proud, satisfied that his vision had come to life and that he had proven his theory: one person could dismantle systems that thousands depended on. Yet, his victory was hollow. The careful observation, planning, and manipulation that had allowed him to dominate the mall's environment had also left digital fingerprints, physical traces, and inconsistencies that could not be ignored. During the trial, the full scope of Mark's actions was revealed, shocking the nation. Courtroom exhibits included footage of panicked crowds, tampered systems, and detailed plans documenting every move he had made. Prosecutors painted a portrait of a man consumed by obsession, someone who had weaponized his understanding of human behavior and infrastructure. Experts testified about how rare and dangerous such calculated manipulation was, emphasizing that the mall's collapse was not the result of chance, but the work of a single, determined individual. In the end, Mark Whitman became a chilling example of what one person, armed with patience, knowledge, and obsession, could accomplish. The city's largest mall, once a symbol of safety and community, was left fractured, both physically and psychologically. His case remained a warning. Systems, no matter how well designed, are vulnerable when a single mind seeks to exploit them. Even after the final verdict, the memory of the chaos lingered, a haunting testament to the destructive power of one man who believed he could control everything and almost succeeded.